That's it. Papastem Tsikason. My name's Whitehorse, and today I'm going to be doing fire teachings with you, Iskutio, or fire. So with Nihiawak, with Cree peoples, we have certain teachings that go around Iskutio, or fire. And I guess to begin properly in Nihiawiwin, I'm going to start, as with all things in Nihiawiwin or in Cree ways, and we're going to start off with the stories about fire. So I'm going to tell you 3 legends about fire, coming from different parts in Canada, different nations. So the first story I'll tell you comes to us from out east in the Mohawk country. So this legend tells a little story about fire as well as the origin of crow. So the Mohawk were told that Kayas long ago, people didn't have fire and the winters were getting really harsh and cold and they had no way to warm themselves and they were starting to die off. So the great chiefs and the medicine men gathered and they thought, we're going to have to do something about this. And they called upon the spirit of the crow. And in those days, crow was called the rainbow bird to the Mohawk people. He had brilliant colors all over his feathers, all different colors, and he looked so beautiful, all different colored, brilliant wings. So they called upon Spirit of the Crow and they asked of him if he could fly to Grandfather's son and poke a stick into Grandfather's son and bring back some of the fire on that stick. So Spirit of the Crow agreed, and he flew higher and higher directly for the sun, and it was getting hotter and hotter. And finally he had the stick in his mouth and he was able to touch Grandfather's son, and the stick caught fire. As soon as the stick caught fire, Rainbow Crow turned and started heading back to the people. And as he was flying down, the fire was burning and black smoke was billowing out of the flames, and it was covering Rainbow Crow. And the longer that he flew and the farther that he flew carrying the stick with the smoke, it was starting to turn his feathers blacker and blacker and blacker, until when he finally reached the people, he was completely blackened by the smoke of the fire. But he brought the fire to the people, and the people were so grateful for him. And they still give offerings to Crow this day, remembering how he went to the sun and brought the fire back for them. But also, to this day, all crows are still all colored completely black from the fire that was burning and the smoke that was covering them. But if you look really closely at the crow's feathers, you can still just barely see the faintest of all the rainbow colors in those blackened wings. So that's the story of fire, how fire came to the Mohawk people. I'm going to tell you the second legend of fire. And the second legend of fire comes to us from the Mi'kmaq people, or the Mi'kmaq of Eastern Canada. And this story also tells not only of the fire, but it tells of Robin. Because Kayas long ago, Mi'kmaq people were told that Robin was a very different color. He very much looked exactly like a Canada jay, and he was all gray throughout his body, and his wings were black, and that's the way robins looked. But something happened. Robin had been flying around. He lived close to the people, and he had noticed that the winters were getting too hard for the Mi'kmaq people, and they were starting to freeze during the winter, and they had no way to cook their food. So Robin came and talked to the medicine men and said, let me do something to help you guys, to try and help you so that you can cook your food and that you can have warmth and that you can stay warm throughout the long winters when the snows come. So the Mi'kmaq people, the medicine men, were very happy to hear this, and they praised Robin for offering to do this. So Robin thought about this for a while, and he flew around and he thought, maybe if I fly around during a lightning storm, then I can catch the lightning on a stick, and maybe it'll catch fire, because I've seen lightning hit the ground and strike fires while I was flying around. So Robin saw a storm coming up, and he grabbed a stick and he started flying through the air everywhere where he could see lightning flashing. And after a great while, lightning finally struck the stick that he was carrying, and it caught fire, to Robin's delight. So he immediately started flying back to the Mi'kmaq people, bringing them the fire, careful not to let the flames burn out. But as he was flying, it was starting to burn his chest and starting to light on fire on his chest, and he was starting to turn orange, the color of fire, as he was flying down. He was just about to burn himself and burst into flames when he finally reached the Mi'kmaq people, and he handed them the stick. And he told them, here's the fire that'll keep you warm and you can cook your food from it. And the Mi'kmaq people were very grateful to Robin for this. But as a result, since that day, all robins have had an orange breast, showing the place where the fire had burned Robin when he had flown to get the fire for the Mi'kmaq people. So that's the story of how fire came to the Mi'kmaq people. And I'm going to tell you the third legend of fire, how fire came to the Nihiawak, the Cree people. And with this story, when I tell it, because most of our legends in Nihiawin, or Cree, in the Cree ways, have to do with trickster. And we are taught that the only time we're able to tell trickster legends is when there's snow on the ground. We're not allowed to say the name of trickster when there's not snow on the ground, or we're told something not good will happen to you. So we're really not supposed to say the name of trickster. However, in talking with elders, I was told that there are teachings from long ago that tell us there are special times when we can say trickster's name. And the only way we're able to say trickster's name when telling a story when there's not snow on the ground is to offer up cedar, and to have cedar smoking while we're telling the story. In this way, it's making an offering to trickster to leave us alone, and not for anything bad to happen to us when we're telling his stories when there's not snow on the ground. So because this is a trickster story, I am going to offer up some cedar to trickster before saying his name. So I offer up some cedar, and I let the cedar smoke as I'm telling trickster's story. So now that my cedar is smoking and I'm protected, I can now say the name of trickster, which of course in Nihiawak, or Nihiaw, we call him Wesakaychak. So now with my cedar burning, I can tell the Wesakaychak story, because this story I'm going to tell comes to us from Nihiaw country, or Cree country. And with Nihiawak, our teachings about skutio, or fire, are told that Wesakaychak is the one that brought us fire. And those who know the Wesakaychak legends know that his legends are very much an epic. The stories are all connected, and you can see a timeline with the stories. So at this point in time, this is when we are told as Nihiawak, this is when Wesakaychak was living with his kochom. and he had met this old kokum, and he decided to stay with her because she was alone and had no one to take care of her or hunt for her. So he had stayed with this kokum, and many things happened while he was with this kokum. But on this particular time, he was staying with his kokum, and it was getting to the fall, and it was starting to get frosty and cold out. And at this time, Nihiawak didn't have any skutio or any fire. And Wesakaychak had known that about fire, but Nihiawak hadn't started using fire yet. So he was telling this to his kokum. He said, "Noko, you know what? There's no reason for you to have to freeze when the frost comes. You don't have to stay all bundled up inside your blankets and robes. There's biskotio. It's fire. You've seen it in streaking across the sky and the lightning, and you've seen the forest fires. Well, we can use that." Wesakaychak's kokum looked at him and said, "Hamsano, I've never heard about this before, but if you say it's so, then how do we get this skotio? How do we get this fire?" Wesakaychak thought about this for a while. He thought, you know what? Thunderbird always has fire because he's a thunder being, and I know where Thunderbird lives. So maybe if I go and if I'm tricky enough, maybe I can take some skutio, some fire from him. "Oh, I'm gonna go try this," Wesakaychak said. And immediately he left, and he went to where Thunderbird was staying in the mountains, and he looked up and he could see the nest of Thunderbird there. And he carefully thought about it. He said, "Well, I can't climb up there because Thunderbird is very wary of people, and he doesn't let people approach." And he thought, "I know. I'll turn myself into wapos, and I'll hop around up here looking like I'm cold, because right now, old man Thunderbird, he's got little ones with him, and maybe his little ones or will feel sorry for me." So he started hopping around, shivering, and sure enough, the juvenile or the younger Thunderbirds noticed wapos shivering down there, and they asked old man Thunderbird, "Oh, can we bring that poor little wapos up here to our nest, that poor little rabbit, and warm him up? We don't want him to die. Look, he looks so cute and he's shivering." Reluctantly, the old Thunderbird agreed and said, "Oh, okay, I agree. You guys can bring that little wapos up here just till it warms up. And once it's warm, you're gonna have to let him go again, because we don't want it around. We don't like anything coming around our nest." So the two juvenile Thunderbirds went down and they brought the wapos, which of course was Wesakaychak disguised. Brought him into the nest. They covered him up with some of their feathers and let him warm, because of course Thunderbirds, there was fire, there's sparks and everything, so it was really warm. And they let this little wapos warm up near the embers. Towards evening, before dark, of course the old Thunderbird started to get tired, and he started to go to sleep. And by this time, the younger Thunderbirds had lost interest in this wapos, and they were turned away, busy doing something. So Wesakaychak, disguised as a wapos, thought, "Well, I'm going to take this. This is my chance." And he grabbed some of the embers and he put them on his back, and he started creeping away. And he managed to climb all the way down from the nest onto the ground with the embers still on his back. But as soon as he touched the earth, the old Thunderbird, always suspicious of everything, started looking around, and he could see this wapos hopping away with the embers. And immediately he started calling, "Hey, this wapos, he come and stole fire. That's what he was doing here. He's stealing some of our skutio. We've got to get him." And immediately the Thunderbirds took to the air and they started shooting bolts of lightning at Wesakaychak, who was still disguised as a Wapos. So Wesakaychak was dodging and hiding and hollering, somebody help me, these thunderbirds are trying to kill me, and there's lightning bolts shooting down at him. And finally, Waskwaymitos, the birch tree, called to Wesakaychak. Oh, Wesakaychak, astam ko ako. There's a hollow in me, climb inside and hide inside the hollow of my trunk here. I'll take care of you and protect you. Because some of our other teachings teach us how Waskwaymitos is a protector of the people. But on this day, it was calling to this Wapos with this ember on him, hide inside me. And these thunderbirds were flying around Waskway, and they were shooting their thunderbolts at him and hitting black spots on him, almost catching him on fire. Finally, the thunderbirds gave up and they went back to their nest. And Wesakaychak was able to crawl out from the birch, and he thanked the birch. Oh, gananaskumptin Waskwaymitos. Thank you so much for protecting me. You'll always be remembered as a protector. And as he was hopping away, Wesakaychak noticed that Waskwaymitos, the birch tree, hadn't come out of this unharmed, because he had black marks all over him where the thunder was hitting, where the lightning was hitting his birch bark. And Wesakaychak noticed this, and he started hopping back to his kokum. Finally, he arrived at Kokum's camp. He said, Kokum, Astam, I brought you. I got iskotio. It's on my back. Take these little embers and put them on a bare spot inside the teepee, and we'll put some grass and everything on there and some twigs, and then it'll start skotio. So Kokum did this, put some little kindling on there, and sure enough, skotio flamed up, and Kokum was able to warm up her teepee and cook her food, and from that day forward, fire was brought to Nihiawak. So to this day, Wesakaychak even remembered the birch there and how it protected him. But to this day, Nihiawak can see this when we look at Waskwaymitos, because every Waskwaymitos out there, every Waskway has all these black marks on it where it looks like it was burnt by lightning bolts. And this is a reminder to all Nihiawak of how, not only how Waskway is a protector of the people, but how Waskway helped to bring fire to Nihiawak. So now you know the story of Wesakaychak and how he brought skotio to Nihiawak. And today we're going to be talking about skotio, or fire, and the teachings behind skotio, or the fire teachings, because to Nihiawak, or Cree peoples, we have special teachings that go all around skotio, or fire. And these teachings are taught to us from a very, very, very early age, because at an early age we're taught to respect skotio, because skotio is alive. It's a living spirit, or athchak. So we're taught from an early age to show great respect to skotio athchak, or the fire spirit. Of course, we also call it Mosum skotio, or grandfather fire, because fire has a lot to teach us, just like any Mosum, any grandfather. So we call fire Mosum skotio. And with these teachings, we're taught, of course, that fire is alive. We can see it. It's angry. It gets angry. It's calm at times. It's relaxed. We can see sadness in it. But we could see all these emotions in skotio. And this is why we're taught that Mosum skotio is a living spirit. and we're taught to be very respectful of it, because with Squatio, it can be very helpful to us. So hopefully you've heard the legends around Squatio, or fire, and hopefully the fire legends stay with you, and you think about them when you're dealing with fire, or making fire, or anything to do with fire. But for us Nihilak, Cree people, we're taught that fire can teach us a lot. And in fact, we're taught that when we make a fire, we call to the grandfather fire, and we ask it to give us a teaching as soon as we're making a fire. So once we've gotten all our kindling together, and we're just setting about getting the lighting, the kindling, or the wasquaya, or whatever we've got to start our fire, we're told that first match that we light, or that first flame we light to light the fire, we ask and we put down a little bit of tobacco as an offering, or some kind of offering, a little bit of sage or something into the fire, and we ask Mosum Squatu. When I do it, I ask just like that. I say, Mosum Squatu, teach me something good today. And then you light the fire. And we're taught that if you ask Mosum Squatu, when you do light them, that the spirit of the fire will bring some kind of teaching to you. Not just at that moment, but sometime during the day, he'll allow a teaching to be given to you. So we're taught to make sure we ask Mosum Squatu for teachings when we light the fire. So with Nihiawak, we use fire as a tool, not just the tools that you think for everyday life. Of course, we'd use fire for cooking or for heating our homes, but fire was used as well in the stewardship of the land, or taking care of the land, because as Nihiawak, we are tasked with being the stewards of the land and nature, because nature and all of the little beings, all of the living plants, all of the living streams, most of the time they can't take care of themselves. They need somebody to take care of them. And as Nihiawak, because we depend on them, we are tasked with taking care of them. So it's a relationship that goes both ways. It's symbiotic. We rely on the plants, the animals, the streams, the mountains, and they rely on us to be their spokesperson and to take care of them. So part of this around the fire teaching teaches us that through generations and generations, we've seen how Squatio can be good for nature if done properly and controlled properly. So the lighting or the controlled burning of areas in a safe manner, just to help nature to replenish itself or to become lush again. Because if you notice right now in nature, when you go out, and hopefully we'll show you an area here where you could see parts of nature that are untouched by fire, and parts of nature that have been touched by fire. Because in an area where that has been untouched by fire, what happens is all of the dead trees or any branches, they fall to the bottom of the floor on the forest, and they get all, it's just a big tangled mess. And all the weeds and plants all meshed together, so it really looks really super messy out there and thick, and it's hard to walk through, and even the animals, it's hard for them to pick through that and eat, pick the food that they like. So it's hard for everything. Not only that, it gets to be dangerous, because if it's left to grow in this manner, anything like lightning can cause an unplanned, uncontrolled fire. And it's with these that, with Nihiawak, with Cree people, that is one of the scariest things that we've ever had to face, is these unplanned, uncontrolled fires that are caused by when the bush is allowed to just be left alone, and all the dry things and all the fuel for a fire get left and not allowed to be cleaned in a safe manner. So when these fires catch, we get what's called an angry musom skutiu, or a very angry fire, because all of the spirits, the spirits of the trees and the plants and the streams and the mountains, they're all angry that they're just not being taken care of. They're allowed to just overgrow, and seeing all this mess in the bush. So of course all the spirits get angry. So Musom Skutio starts, and he's angry when he has to come through bush like that, and he'll, doesn't matter what's in his path, he'll angrily take down all the plants and animals and everything in its path. So as Nihiawak, we are taught we got to watch for this and take care of our Mother Earth, and watch for when the bush starts to get too thick or too bushy, or old sticks, dead trees are left on the ground. We were taught that when we see areas like that, we very carefully have to burn that area, because we've noticed through generations that once fire does go through, everything gets cleaned out. All that dead plants, all the brushes and everything that messes up the bush is gone. And of course it's just looks awful for a short time. But within days, the little plants start to grow again. And even though it looks devastating when it first goes through, like I said, within days, all the little plants start to come out. All the leaves start to grow again. And after a week or two, all of the plants start to grow again, but from small, and they grow on this nice, clean, fresh carpet. And it just looks so clean, no dead sticks or anything in the area. And it just looks like a nice, neat forest, and it starts to grow more lush, because plants that were getting drowned out or getting starved out from the other plants, they're allowed to grow again. And plants that might have disappeared are given a chance to grow again and repopulate. So all of this lush greenery grows, but it's a very clean looking forest. So as Nihiawak, we're taught that this is something that we must try and control. And there are many ways that Nihiawak have learned to do this controlled burning in the bush, by waiting until the weather is not dry and really hot. It's not a good time to burn, or when there's the water is in a drought situation where there's hardly any water. Definitely wouldn't burn around those times. So often we're taught we do our burning in the spring, in the early spring, even when there's still maybe a little bit of snow on the ground. Even as a really young boy, I remember the elders in my community going out and doing this controlled burning in our hunting areas, in our fields, and just lighting up those areas and allowing musum skutio to burn through there and clean out that bush and make it nice and lush and really neat looking. And this was done for generations and generations. It's just especially in recent years, especially with all of the fear with forest fires and everything, where we're told absolutely do not burn, absolutely no controlled burning, we just leave the bush alone. Nihiawak, Cree people, our elders have talked about this for many years, that we are still very close to the land and we go to the bush And we see how the bush is getting all, it's messy, it's tangled, it's not a healthy environment. The trees are not healthy because they haven't been given that chance for new growth. There's sticks everywhere, logs everywhere, stuff that should have been burnt out. And for Nihio, remember, we're taught that everything has a spirit. So when we see even all these dead trees, it's almost like as though if they were people, would we allow people to just to pass and then just laying out all over around us? It feels the same way to Nihio or Cree people when we see all of the bush and all of the plants like that. It's as though we're just saying, nobody cares about those beings, because we believe every plant, every animal, every stream, every rock has a spirit, and we must treat them as such, not to just discard them and just let them just rot on the ground. So this is why we were taught that we need to be cleaning that up. We need to let everything burn and go up as smoke to our ancestors, not only to honor them, the beings or the plants, but to clean the bush and make it safe, make Mother Earth clean and safe and tidy, so all of the plants can thrive, and plants aren't having to fight each other for water or sunlight. So again, we controlled burn for years, and it was very much having this relationship with Mosom Skotio or the grandfather fire, and knowing where to light, knowing how to light the fire, knowing when to light it. And all of these teachings around it have taught us to be able to do this in a safe manner for years. But these teachings are very much being lost. Not only are they being lost, we're not allowed to practice them because of regulations and laws. But we're seeing, especially in current times and in recent years, we're seeing the result of that, where Mosom Skatu is angry, and we see these massive forest fires going through, non-stoppable, burning houses, burning towns, burning cities. This is because we've allowed our Mother Earth to become all cluttered and all this dead matter and all this fuel for Skatu to be left in the bush. And so that when Skotio does start, Mosom Skotio comes with a vengeance, angry that we're just leaving the bush and not taking care of it anymore. So we're seeing these massive forest fires, devastating forest fires. So a lot of our Nihio Kihtihiak, or our Cree elders, are starting to say, we need to take back those teachings. We need to start doing the things we used to do in the respectful manner, which means reclaiming those Skotio teachings and how to use fire in a good manner, so that we're not left with this bush that's just looks awful, and there's dead trees and dead sticks and plants or thistles and all of this not healthy plants, but it's not a healthy forest. But if we allow that to be cleaned out by Mosom Skotio or the grandfather fire, then we end up with this nice lush forest, all these healthy plants coming up, the trees become healthy. After a few years after a fire has passed, you wouldn't recognize the forest because it looks totally new. It looks like a new forest, clean. You can walk through it with ease. The animals can walk through it with ease. The water now flows properly. because it's not blocked off by all of these dead logs and all of this dead matter, because it affects everything. It affects the animals, the plants, the insects, the water, how the water flows. Everything is affected when we allow our bush just to, or our forests just to get messy and all covered in all this dead matter, and it becomes dangerous. So our elders are teaching us, of course, we need to reclaim these teachings, these Kutiwa teachings, and teach our young ones how to once again use Musum's Kutiwa respectfully, and how to use it to help our Mother Earth, help our fellow plants and animals, and to help to have a healthy ecosystem again. So I hope you've learned a little bit, especially about Nihiawiwin or the Cree ways, because this teaching is teachings that were given to Nihiawak or Cree people, and I know that all other nations have teachings around Skutu or fire, and hopefully you get to learn about some of the other nations and what their teachings are. Because I think you'll see that as Indigenous people in Canada, or even anywhere in the Americas, we have very similar stories and very similar teachings. So hopefully you've learned something today, and thank you for joining me.